Hey guys, this is Yogi Chris, PhD of ninthlimb.com, and I'm with Miro on Boss to Boss. If you want to take control of your life and if you want to make the shift and go after your dreams and passions, I highly recommend you check out Boss to Boss podcast. It archives everything that you need to know from various entrepreneurs that's going to take you to the next level when you see how other people have done it. So I hope to see you on the podcast next time.
Welcome to Boss to Boss. Today's episode is Rants and Recaps, R&R 66. We got Steve Wiley in his big chair over there, ready to spit some knowledge at y'all. He got Miro, we slow, like we are slow, but we really aren't. Steve's favorite line.
Yeah.
And we're about to crush it. Business and technology.
Oh, yeah.
Business and technology. How reliant are we? Can we succeed and live without it? The technology part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to preface everything, and the reason we were talking about this is because anybody that lives in the Midwest or, Chicagoland area, I guess pretty much the middle of the country, had a huge blizzard. I don't know where you're at right now, but, anywhere in Chicagoland, I mean, pretty much the power was out. A lot of places, my power was out for a considerable amount of time. And as you know, I have an internet-based business. We work on computers. So when the power and the internet's out, it's kind of standstill. And it's
and on behalf of Steve Wiley and Boss to Boss Productions, we apologize on the delay of the release of Monday's episode with Adam Lewis Walker, as that was actually to do with the power outage.
Yeah, it was a real pain. It's actually funny because the power went on a couple times as I was uploading it, and I had to actually attempt to upload it 4 different times, and 3 of those times the power cut out right in the middle. So it was ridiculous. And then the last time it cut out, it didn't come back on for another day. So, everything else that I was doing, done. And at the same time, it gets scary when you're when you have a computer working so hard and the power gets cut. It's bad for the computer. And I just bought a whole brand new setup. So the power cut out one time before during a storm, and I had to replace something that was like $300 in it.
Because it could short circuit, right?
Yeah. I bought a really good power supply, surge protector. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of advice that I give anybody. If you have anything that's expensive, don't just say, it won't happen to me, right? Because it will. That surge protector is very, very important because, lightning strikes and, you never know. There's so many things that can break. Sometimes it's almost impossible to figure out what it is. And then you have to just replace everything, especially in a computer.
So if a listener or just me in general, I'm really reliant on my computer every day to day. You take that to a whole nother level because your whole business, you're running it off of a computer. What would you get? What kind of surge protector? How much did you have to spend? I'm not really familiar.
So there's a couple different options. There's one is just a general surge protector. I mean, they're not all the same. One of the things that I'm not. Specific brands aren't necessarily as important as the quality and how much protection there is. So I would say a surge protector anywhere from $50 upwards. That's one of those things where you can never be too careful. Mm-hmm. You don't want to skimp on that type of stuff. Another thing, especially for computer systems and things like that, is called an uninterruptible power supply. So it's basically like a battery backup. So you can set up if you have like what I have here. I have a pretty beefy setup that has multiple monitors on it. So
you have visuals for us.
I don't have the visual right now, and I'm not going to move the camera, obviously. But it's all
pick
all
up the
here.
whole computer. Pick it all up.
Yeah,
Come on,
it's all down here. But so it's set up so if the power does go out, uninterruptible power supply, you can make it so if the power does get cut, then it'll tell the computer to shut down, and it'll give you like a 20-minute, or depending on how big the battery is, it'll give you like that extra bit of juice so it doesn't shut down all at once, and fry itself. So I don't have one of those yet, and that's the next thing that I'm going to get because thankfully nothing broke this time, but you never know. You can't be too
So that
careful.
still lets you operate for a little bit, right? If you're finishing things up.
Yeah, like it'll basically give the computer an opportunity to shut itself down, so nothing, like the right way, and depending on how you set it up, you'll either have to do it yourself or it'll automatically recognize and go into shutdown. So it's, that's a little bit complicated, but, I know we talk a lot about, entrepreneurship and things like that. So anybody that, has invoices, obviously, everything's done pretty much on the computer. The worst thing that could happen is your computer gets fried, like your hard drive or something like that, and you didn't have backups, and you didn't have, like anything like what we're talking about, some sort of safeguard, and you lose all your customers' information. That's like a nightmare. You're basically out of business because what are you going to do? You don't even know who to call. If you have enough clients, you don't even have their contact information. There's some horrible nightmare stories that I've heard from people, and that's definitely not something that you want to deal with. So that's just a word of advice, and I'm glad I invested in this surge protector when I did, because it probably would have been much worse.
Or you could just be like me and have a laptop and just never plug it in.
Yeah.
That's one way. How are you protecting yourself? You have the surge protector, but what about all of your clients' data, things like that? What if you weren't able to have access for the entire week?
So
What would you have done?
That's a good question, and that goes back to having backups, especially for like web hosting and things like that. Like, I don't necessarily have all the information locally on my end. I mean, I have access to it all, but the majority of the customer information, all the important things, are in the cloud, and they can be accessed from any computer, any internet connection with the right accounts. That, and then also, you don't want to depend 100% on the cloud. I also make regular physical backups at specific time with an external hard drive. So, if say for instance something goes down and I don't have cloud access, I could plug in one of the backups and it'll be good. If a virus happens or something like that, everything will kind of have an air gap between it. So, it's always a really good idea to make sure that you regularly do backups, just to be safe. Don't depend on any one thing, and then you should be good to go. So, that's just probably the best thing that you can do.
And I take it the reason for the external hard drive backup is clouds, as reliable as they are nowadays, there still could be a hack attack, right? There still could be some sort of disturbance, right?
Well, sure,
chances
sure,
are
yeah.
slim, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is there's one of the safest places you can have things is in the cloud, but you have to understand that the cloud just means somebody else's computer. So like if you don't have access to your own files when you need them on demand, then you're just depending on somebody else, and that's basically putting your life in somebody else's hands, and it's never a good thing to do.
Do you still hold any files, any paper files, or no?
Yes, very important things. I'll obviously have a digital copy, but then a hard copy as well. Just because it's just, I don't know, it's old school way, but it works. I mean, but yeah, I don't have anything that's just on paper, or, you know what I mean? Like, I definitely scan everything and put it in the right place, so I can have access to it anywhere. So, nowadays it's like, I don't know. I very rarely go into my file cabinet. It's only when like people send forms and things like that, and I need actual signatures. But those all are scanned too. So, what about you? Do you hold paper files still?
Almost none. I honestly, with Hodgepodge, we wanted to go green with everything, and that I had to kind of start that up with the culture at the very top, and the culture. I guess the culture just trickle down everywhere. No paper everywhere. Like, I mean, yes, we do like flyers and things like that, which I'm still kind of looking at other ways, maybe using some products that are more environmentally sustainable. But yeah, for the most part, everything I've ever gotten has been scanned in or taken. Well, nowadays you got these apps like the Adobe. I think it's Adobe Photo. That's the app, I believe.
Where you can just take a picture and scan it,
and it turns into a PDF instantly, and goes right into your cloud right away, and then boom, and then yes, I'll do the occasional backup on the hard drive as well. So I got like stuff on my computer. I have another computer, like a backup computer at the office, and then I have the cloud, and then I have a hard drive, which I need to start doing more often because you just never know.
Yeah.
And I almost don't have any documents left. I only have probably the couple like LLC organizational documents.
Sure.
That's about it. And maybe a couple original purchases, like the very first things. But I don't even need those anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's all really accessible online too. Like if you reach out, if you look out online, there's usually records somewhere, or your attorney might have these documents legally for next, I believe, like 5-7 years. I can't remember the law right now. They keep changing things all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, and honestly, like you said it. When do you actually go into your cabinet and look through those things?
Very
Usually
rarely.
things just pile up on top, and then 3-4 years down the road, you're like, man, why did this pile get here? How do I throw things out? And you start going through it. It's all going to get thrown out eventually, right? It almost seems like.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you guys were actually moving us, when we moved here, that's one of the things that I went through before because a heavy file cabinet full of garbage, that sucks. So I went through it and I had lots and lots of stuff that I was like, I don't need any of this. Why is this even in here?
Yep.
So like of the vast majority of stuff that was in my file cabinet, I looked at it, just skimmed through it, and just threw it all in the garbage.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's really important, you probably would look at it.
It's nice and shameless plug here, but with spring cleaning coming up before you know it, it's a great time to kind of reflect and actually set a day or two aside. We're gonna be doing some posts about that for Hodgepodge, some blog posts about legit just going through your stuff, because a lot of times you look at it and you're like, why the hell did I keep this stuff? Like, what do I need these random like pieces of paper and instruction manuals or things that it's all online now. You could literally just get bags and go recycle this stuff. And actually repurpose it towards something that's more useful, like, I don't know, paper straws. There we go. That's a new thing right now, paper straws. I don't know.
Paper straws, huh?
Yeah, have you drank out of one yet?
No, I haven't. I actually kind of
weird.
I don't know. I don't really use straws. I mean, the only time that I really use straws, I think now, is if I get fast food, and that's very rarely. So I mean, I don't know. Do you use a lot of straws anyway?
No, it's only at restaurants. So I was out to eat, and the place had a paper straw, cardboard straw. It was so weird because as you're drinking it, the longer you're using it,
it's getting softer and softer.
Yeah. And it was kind of weird. And then they give you a new one. So I guess it's like a new thing, a lot more play. And then I saw it again. At first, I thought I was like a upper end thing, but no, it's a big movement. I think they're gonna tax straws or something like that, and regular straws. So
well,
I mean that's one way to do it, right? That's one way to do it.
Yeah, tax it until it's gone, and then the source of money dries up. It's one way of thinking.
So technology and business, we mentioned it, and obviously you had for you it was a shit show Monday. Were you able to at least like get things done on your phone, or were you so reliant on your computer that it was just like a lost day?
So like, it was so bad here. The snow was so bad. And I mean, for anybody that doesn't live in northern, the United States, like where you get heavy snow, I mean, we're talking snow that snapped telephone poles.
Oh, I've seen the trees down all over.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple poles and trees like all over the place. There was electric, like we thought there was lightning because they were talking about maybe having like thunder snow or whatever,
Mhm.
but it wasn't lightning. It was transformers and electrical cables blowing all over the place. There was purple and green flashes outside,
Oh, really?
all over from different directions.
No
And
way.
then, yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. It was crazy. And so like on Facebook we have a Facebook group for the neighborhood or whatever, so everybody in the neighborhood kind of is like, yeah, our power's down over here, which was super helpful. If you live in an area with a Facebook group, a lot of neighborhoods have them. That is by far the best way. That was like the only way we really had any connection to the news of what was going on, because everything was out and the only thing we had was our phone. So it was pretty much just the only way to get real time information. So it's crazy.
Through a Facebook group, actually, someone robbed this house that I'm in right now. Someone robbed the garage, and actually through the Facebook group for this community, the person was found because somebody,
Oh wow,
a picture was posted, and then somebody else in the neighborhood saw this guy, and he actually stole something else. And the next thing you know, it all tied together, and through this group,
crazy. Yeah,
this person actually got caught.
it's a digital neighborhood watch. It really is. And it's cool to see that, and it's really nice to it's really nice to be in communication with your neighbors. I think we kind of get away from that because we're so separated. Like especially from moving away from the city where you don't. I mean, we lived in an apartment building with like lots of people, and I never saw any neighbors. The only neighbor I ever saw was the person across the hall, and it would be like an uncomfortable thing when I'd see him when we're walking up to the doors, So it's like no conversation whatsoever.
No, you didn't even say hi.
I mean, we would be like, hey, how's it going? It'd be awkward
Every single time, same thing. Hey, how's
yeah.
it going?
Yeah, it'd be awkward. There's no deeper conversation, nothing like that. But now it's like, suburban life is so much different. It's really weird. It's hard to get used to coming from the city.
But is it creepy though? Because essentially it's like there are eyes and ears everywhere.
Well,
That's
I mean,
the part about it with technology.
yeah, I mean, well, the technology part is one thing, but I think that, it's like it is nice because of the fact that you have people watching. There are. I mean, it sucks when you have like the lady that calls the cops every time you turn your car on or something. But we don't have that, thankfully. But it does exist.
Oh,
but it's just weird that people are friendly. Like everybody has like their own like place that they go shopping, and people interact, and you kind of see the same faces. And it's so spread out compared to the city where everybody's on top of each other, and you could literally live like on the same block and never see the same person. So it's a different dynamic, which I like it. But then you have to deal with things like this, where the power goes out.
Could this be a good networking opportunity to actually network with your community members who normally you never would, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And that's the thing that was so amazing. The fact that like people were out there like, hey, if anybody needs like a generator, let me know. Like just random people that,
Oh, wow.
And we were talking like on the Facebook group with people, and like actually having a conversation. Maybe it's because everybody's power was out. That could be one thing.
Right.
But it does happen still. I mean, like people are like, hey, does anybody know like a contractor for this? And then you'll get 5 different people that'll say, but it's not advertisements. It's actually like people, like down the street. Like, oh yeah, I taught this guy so-and-so, he did a good job for me when I needed this. You should give him a call. And it's cool to see that. It's like
I've gotten some business through that, actually. Not purposely, not knowingly, through Facebook groups. Because, I feel like there's definitely a trust that gets built up in those groups.
Sure.
If they're in your community, then automatically there's just like that little sense. Obviously you're always going to go towards someone that you know or someone referred over someone you don't at all.
Absolutely.
And, I've actually been lucky enough to get some business through some people spreading my name in different groups.
Great. Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting to see how things work out. But it's technology is a really important part of everything, and I don't think that people understand as much as how much it really is like intertwined with every aspect of what you're doing. Like when your power and your internet goes out, we were thinking like we don't even have a radio. We don't have a radio. Like I was like, do we have a radio? No, we don't. So there's no
what
way
is
to.
that?
Yeah.
What is that?
And,
What is
and
that thing?
But going back to what I was saying before about the telephone pole snapping, the power was out so bad and there was so much snow that I didn't even have a cell signal for data. So like I could get phone calls, but my data was down for like a few hours. Like my phone literally, I couldn't even go on the internet on my phone. So I was completely cut off from everybody.
Ooh, well, okay. So that's the part I was going to ask. You actually had no phone service too?
Yeah, I mean,
How does that happen?
I had cell service, but I didn't have data service. Like because there was so much ice on everything, and like we don't really get good reception here already. But like when there's so much stuff in the way, you're talking about radio signals, and that's how your data works. So when you're talking like just the heaviest, grossest snow, caking everything, turning into ice, like it just cuts down the signal so much that it was unusable. And then at the same time, the pressure on the network of everybody being out of internet, there's only so much internet that everybody can get through. The pipe's only so big. So I couldn't even like do anything. I couldn't go on any websites, or I couldn't even like open the weather app, which is crazy. So for like a good like 2 or 3 hours, it was like the Stone Age. There was no power. There was nothing. All you could hear was just cracks and pops of like things breaking outside.
Well, I didn't even know it was that bad. Like when you told me you had no internet and power, I thought it was just your computer, but your phone too. I mean, that's like a whole nother level, because we are so dependent. Like for me, for example, I was going to say that for me, if I lost my internet, my power, for example, I could still run my business for the most part. I could, as long as I have my phone and I could find a way to charge it, whether it's through my car or going somewhere else. I could still run my business because for the most part, I have everything kind of streamlined in a way that whatever it is, pretty much essentially I could almost access everything through the phone. Even all my accounting stuff, like I almost have it in a way that I could access everything through my phone. And I've been kind of lucky, and it kind of took me some time to build it up that way. But if I lost that part, like yes, there's certain things that you just need the computer, like convenience, be able to type it out for me and be able to maybe just have that bigger screen for certain things. But if I lost the phone service too, that data, I mean, then
it's crazy.
Then it's
crazy.
We're shit out of luck, because then I could still call people and get things done that way. So it would just be a lot of calls and communication and kind of like how things used to be done. That doesn't mean it's not possible, right? I mean, you just got to kind of adjust at that moment. How did you adjust on Monday? Like when you lost those 3 hours, were you able to do anything business wise, or were you just kind of gave up, or were you still calling people?
I mean, at that point, I had to protect the house, make sure things are there. When it gets that far, like I'm not even thinking anymore about that. Like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just, it was pretty rough. We had to figure out like the heating situation and, so it's just, it gets rough, but, I mean, like, for the most part, a phone, you can get by with handling emails and things like that. And one of the things that was really, really great was the fact that there's other people, that can pick up some of this slack if something goes down. There actually were some issues that I found out about, when the power was off, and there was nothing I could really do about it, but I did have my phone at that time. So I could some of it was just handled automatically because the people knew what was going on.
Yes.
But then I was able to be like, okay, do this, or, call this person or whatever. And it got taken care of. But if I didn't have people that were able to kind of handle that stuff, and I was just all by myself, it'd be madness. It would be a nightmare. As a matter of fact, the people across the street right now still don't have power. So, so we're really lucky. They don't have power across the street.
So essentially you're saying it's a lot better to start up a business with other people in place, or other people that kind of get there over time, right?
Yes.
Than doing it all yourself.
And another thing is, if, say, for instance, I was really stingy about permissions and somebody didn't have the credentials to handle the same types of things that I can handle, then we would be screwed. because, a lot of people, especially in this type of industry, they I can't let anybody know anything. But you have to be able to have somebody there, like, who knows, something could happen to me and I could be impaired, and, but is it fair to my customers, to have their businesses on the back of one person and not know it?
It's not. It's not.
It's not fair at all.
I mean, some people do run businesses that way, and power to them. I have nothing against it. I'm not going to tell you how you have to run your business, and if that's how you thrive, and that's how you want to do it. But then customers should probably know that you're strictly working with you. Well, then they get that personal experience because they're constantly working with you. But they should know that you can't be there 24/7.
Right.
Something goes wrong, that's it. And you got to set that expectation early. Like me nowadays, I had this issue a lot where people are expecting me to come to these job sites. People are expecting me to, be doing a lot of this labor. And I have to I've had to start telling people I know that you've seen my name, everywhere with Hodgepodge. I know you deal with me a lot on the phone, but unfortunately I cannot be there to go to your job. I just, you're not to say your job doesn't matter, but I have to, I have 10 people now on the team that I'm trying to keep employed.
Yeah.
And with that, I have to be out doing other things, such as getting more business or making sure things are running smoothly. I can't be there at the job. So that's one way. And so I'm trying to grow the business. I'm actually working on putting together some sort of manual system, where when things go wrong, there's a troubleshoot. So when I'm not there, someone could access this and solve the issues without me there.
That's a good idea.
Is that something that you have in place?
Yeah, I mean, not as much as probably it would come into play with you, but I mean, so digitally, everybody kind of knows their job already, and everybody knows their permissions, and it's important, to have whenever I bring somebody on, whatever the scope of their stuff is, I do have. These are the things. This is kind of like the workflow of how this stuff works. These are the passwords that you have, and they always have the access to that. I guess it's just a different type of business. But when you say a manual system, what would it accomplish, and what do you mean? What type of troubleshooting would you get done? I guess what do you mean by that? How is it going to work?
I guess I figure for you with being more contractor based, a lot of the contractors already are you pre-screen them, right? They come in with certain certifications and they kind of know how to get things done already. Whereas I don't know, maybe here I'm kind of building a team up, in a certain way. I
that makes sense.
Want them more
like a training manual. You're saying
yes,
just like
essentially.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So when something hits the fan at a job and an item breaks, for example, or somebody gets in a fight, I don't know, or the customer just has some complaint about something breaking or something that it wasn't our fault, something that they could look back on instead of going straight to me right away.
Right. Yeah.
There's a manual in place, digital, that they could look back on and how to handle this problem. Let's say something happens and a guy gets sick and can't show up to a job, who could we call next? Have the people in place that could work for that job.
Yeah.
Or just how to go about, dealing with a customer claim for a product if something is broken, going down the line of, okay, did I do this? Did I do that? Is the problem handled? Yes. Good. Let me know. Let my assistant know. I don't really have an assistant, but let's, but
when you do,
yes, but when I do,
the chain of command,
exactly.
Outlining the chain of command and kind of absolutely. Yeah. And see that nowadays it's so much easier to be able to make that happen as opposed to back in the day where you had to get get a manual printed out and handed out and all that stuff, and people lose it and nobody, so it's almost useless. And it costs you a hell of a lot more money. But nowadays there's almost unlimited options as to kind of how to accomplish that, and that's great. So, I mean, these type of easy tools, technology is something that's just so amazing, and it's really just about kind of coming up with the ideas and what the useful things are, and then if you don't necessarily know how to do it yourself, that's what people like I am here to do, or companies like me. And so, it's really something to be grateful for. But at the same time, you gotta kind of like take pause and realize that keep backups. Have another plan. When the digital method doesn't work, the knowledge, like, I guess one of the funny things that I've heard is like, people know so much now. People have access to infinite amounts of knowledge because they have Google in their hand at all times. But I think that people retain much less. So like back in the day, you had to know everybody that you know's phone number. How many people's phone numbers do you know now? What happens if you know what I mean? What happens if like you had to call somebody that you talk to every day and you don't even know their phone number? Do you know the phone number to your boss or whatever? Do you have that memorized? What happens if you lose your phone on the subway or something and you're going to be late for work and now you lose your job because you didn't call?
I had that issue. I've had that issue numerous times. Like back when I worked, when I was at the public accounting firm RSM, I had that issue. I could not find a number to anybody when I didn't have access to my phone, and I couldn't even find like the main company number either.
There's no phone book.
Oh man, yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
You're giving me nightmares right now.
It's crazy.
And I don't want to put it in the sense that I'm trying to create any hierarchy because I'm against that. I'm not here trying to do that. But I want to create something that everybody else could feel like they play their role, as part of this team, that they could access and solve these problems, attempt to solve these problems with their best ability on their own, without having to go to always to me with these certain things, like whether or not they go to the next person, and then maybe this person will have a better grasp on the problem. So, I guess sharing the responsibilities and the roles, and that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on over here.
That's a good move. Definitely. That'll definitely cut down on things. I mean, and one really safe place to put things is always a website, and, people think, oh, well, if it's online, it's totally public.
Public. Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true. I mean, everything is just on a website. Everything that you do, it's just a matter of having the right login and password. So,
exactly.
As long as you're not don't ever put your customers, information on your website, even on the private side. Don't ever do that. You should have a separate type of system for that. But, for anything that's going to be like human resources or kind of anything help knowledge base, always have that stuff accessible, maybe behind a password, because that'll almost never go down. That's what you pay a host for. So, if that goes down, then you need to switch your host, because a host of a website generally has multiple fail safes. And if something even gets hacked, you're always going to have access to it somewhere. So that's always a good move. And, it's easy. People know, okay, we'll just go to the website. Have all your contact information there, and log in, have everybody know, like, their employee ID number is their password or something, whatever. But that's what we do. That I do that for some customers too, like for real estate, like having a good place for having the forms and all that stuff is cool. For like the contractors having the forms for the salespeople that go out and all that, all that stuff is super helpful, and it cuts down on the amount of time that you have to spend doing these tedious things that the computer can do much more efficient, and the computer never has to eat and never has to sleep. So it's an employee that you don't really have to pay, and that never goes to bed. They're always working.
I'm assuming the more cost-effective way, like for someone like me, instead of making a login for the employees, would be probably to make a separate page and just not publish that page at all, right? And only give them the links to it.
Sure. Yeah, you could do it. Absolutely. You could do it that way. Yeah, absolutely.
How would you go about it? What do you think? What's your preferred method?
Well, there's a couple different ways. I mean, one way would just to make a subdirectory, be like, Hodgepodge, or what is it? GoHodgepodge.com/ employee services or employees or whatever. Or you can do a subdomain where it would be like employeeservices.gohodgepodge.com.
Oh, okay. So can you actually explain to me what a subdomain, and to the listeners out there, how does a subdomain work? What is it exactly?
Well, so a subdomain is anything that comes before the actual site. So like if say you like for instance like what I just said. So if you say something like client services dot gohodgepodge.com, that whatever dot before is the subdomain. So it's a domain that is it's a so there's a difference between a domain and a page. A subdomain is like a sub. It's another address that points to a separate folder. You know what I mean? It's all basically files on computers. So there's different ways to go about it. You can set different permissions with subdomains. It's not under the same directory as the main page. It's above that, or separate than that. I'm not going to get super technical about it, but it's basically a more compartmentalized way of directing traffic separately under your domain. You know what I mean?
And can anybody just make a subdomain, or do you have to go and purchase another one? How does that work?
So if it depends on your host. I mean, everybody has different services, but generally a subdomain, if you do your own hosting, like if you're on GoDaddy or something like that, and you pay for basic, I think you would have to pay an extra fee for a separate subdomain, I believe. I'm not sure, but if you do your own hosting and you have some sort of cPanel or something like that,
through you.
Yeah, through me, you can request a subdomain and it's free. It's it just comes with it. We could do it. It's not a problem. But it's all about just setting it up. I wouldn't recommend. So I wouldn't recommend somebody that doesn't understand that stuff to really mess with that, because you can screw things up. And unless you're going to actually be dealing with files and doing transfers, then that's not really something that you're ever going to want to touch.
Yeah.
And another thing is if you have a security, if you have a certificate like SSL, out where it's got the green lock,
yep.
The subdomain may not be covered by that. Where a subdirectory may be.
Yes.
So there's different ways to think about it, and that's where you talk to somebody that actually, is going to maintain and manage that stuff. So
talk to a professional like you, huh?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And there's lots of different ways to do things, so my expertise isn't necessarily. I'm like the first line of attack for that type of stuff, the way that stuff works. But my expertise is figuring out the right way to do things and then passing it off to the person that actually does it at the highest level. So, having the actual developer handle that stuff. Administrator, I guess you'd call it, handle that stuff. So it's not always me. And sometimes there's different ways to do things that I don't even have an understanding of. I don't speak all the code and languages. I kind of mid-level with all that stuff, but
yeah. And you're not expected to know everything, and
right.
That's how it should be everywhere. You should focus on you should focus on what you do best, right? And
there's so many different things.
There's
so many different things
that can do those things much better, and you just have to learn. And something I'm always still learning, to let go of those tasks and those things. Oh man, well, yeah, definitely. Technology and business, they go hand in hand. They could either be a blessing or they could be a nightmare, such as in your case. Luckily, I don't want to jinx it. I haven't had as bad of a scenario, with technology. I've had other related incidences with trucks breaking down, people not showing up, for example, or things breaking. You name it. But with technology specifically, I haven't had that full experience. So this is actually a good way. It's a wake-up call for me, a wake-up call for you again, and then any listener out there. How reliant are you? Do you have the procedures in place? Do you have the right backups? Do you have manuals? Do you have people in place, right? The list goes on.
Yeah.
And you could definitely contact us, talk to us about it, and we'll definitely fill you in on what we know. We definitely have had our fair share of issues.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, and if we don't know it, then we'll find the right person.
Find the right person, right? We don't know it all. We don't. We
Absolutely
like
not.
we like to think we do.
And yeah, the more you know, I guess it's what do they say? They say like, the smarter you are, the more you know you don't know, or something like that.
Dude, you just confused me so badly right now. Wow. Yeah. And I thought I was awake, but after speaking to you, man, you just put me back to sleep.
Oh, thanks, man.
No, you really confused me. I have no idea what you said, so let's end it at that. Let's end it at that. R&R, rants and recaps, everybody. 66. Let's get it. Everybody, hope you crush the rest of your week. We'll be talking again soon with Steve and Miro. We're going to say bye. Peace.
That is all for this episode of Boss to Boss. Your next step is to visit bosstoboss.com, where you will find proven techniques followed by professionals to help you make that next step. Again, that is boss2boss.com. And remember, the time is now.